I don't think to design. They have a lot of experience with CSS and HTML. What's it? So 2 minutes as you're setting up, and we'll give extra time for this as well. Uh, I want to show you how to get set up in the software that we're going to use as well. So if everyone would pay attention, it's called CodePen, or you can just use an email that to the left and click the Pen 2.0 button right at this. Once you're in the Pen 2.AS file, this file and CSS file, make sure everyone's and it's going to show you. It's going to show you a menu that has a CSS file right next to an HTML file, right next to a JavaScript file. That's what it automatically takes you to. That's actually not the correct page. So what you're going to do is once you get there, and again, I'm happy to go over this again. You're going to click your little account page. It's a smiley face at the front of your screen. And that will open up a drop down. And in that drop down, you can just select New Pen 2.0, and then that will take you to the right place. But again, I'm happy to help out to make sure that everyone is fully set up.
And then Caleb, one thing to leave that where they rarely.
So that what next is the preview file. You already, and then the chapter view. Shift up. HTML. It doesn't really matter. Like home doesn't really matter as long as the name ends in .html. When the site knows that it's an HTML file. and it repeats HTML, and all of those are contained within angle brackets. And so that is how all of your elements are going to be created, is with tags like that. And then you see next, inside of the HTML file, you'll see that there's a tab space, and then it has the head tag. The head tag is what contains the metadata for the site, which just means that this is information about the site that is important, but that the users aren't seeing, if that makes sense. So metadata means data about data, and so the users are not seeing that data. So you'll see that there's the head tag, the starting tag that doesn't have the slash. There's some space for content in between, and then there's that second head tag with the slash and then head, that shows that the head element is over. And then we see the body tag. Within the body tag, that is where all of your visible content is going to go. So everything that a user sees when they are in a website is going to be within that body tag. And you can see that it has a starting one right there, and it has an ending one right beneath. And then you'll see within the body tag, there is an H1 tag, an H1 element with an open tag and a closed tag that says hello. So that hello is contained within the body. So if you have a tab space, that the element that is tabbed is contained within the next element. So because we see the body tag and then we see a tab space and then we see the H1 tag, that H1 is contained within the body. Does that make sense? Does everyone understand? So the body tag is not contained within the head tag. It's because it's not, there's no tab there. It's contained at the same level, but they're both contained within the HTML tag. Does that make sense? Is everyone following? Sweet. So we're going to talk about the head section for a little bit. So like I said, this is what contains the metadata for your site. And so anything that the browser needs to know about your site before it starts to put the content in there is stored within this section. And so that can include links, that can include titles. Sometimes it includes meta tags. So in this example, you see we have a link there. That tag says the relation is style sheet. Rel equals, that just shows the website what the relationship between the current file that you're working on and the link that you're sending. So that link tag is telling the site what our style sheet is. And then that hrefs tag right there is showing the link to the site. So that says .style.css. That is sending a link to our CSS file. So that way, the site knows where to look for all of the styling code. And then the next is title. That just shows what we're naming the website. You can change this to whatever you want your website title to be, but that is stored within the header. And so people that are looking at your site are not going to see either of these things because they're stored within the head. That is just for the website to know. And then just to know about responsiveness, you want to design your sites so where they can be both viewed on a computer and on a phone, because lots of people are using the internet from their phones. And so we want to create responsive sites. Responsive in this context just means that how the site looks responds to the device that you're using, the size of the device that you're using. And so we can use a meta line in the head section to tell it to be responsive. And in this line of code right here, you can see that we're starting with a meta, and then we're naming that meta the viewport, which just means that this is how we're viewing the site. And then you can see that line of code that says content width equals the device width, and then the initial scale equals 1. So that is just telling your site that the width to put all of the content in is the device width that it's using, not the original width of the content. Because if you had content that was originally designed for a computer, that's obviously this wide. And then if you're looking at that on a phone, that is this wide. And if you don't tell it to adjust the content to the width of your device, you're only going to see this much of this much content. Does that make sense? Does everyone understand? And so by having this meta tag right here, you're telling the content to make sure, the site to make sure that all the content fits in whatever your device you're using. It's not super important to remember exactly how these codes work. Just remember that you need to tell your site. So this is where the real content of your site starts. And so anything that you are putting in your body text, your body tag, needs to be contained within a separate tag. So a lot of the content is going to be either in a heading or in a paragraph. So headings are just hierarchical ways to organize content. And so essentially, if you want a piece of content, you want a piece of text, to be more important than the rest and to be set apart on your screen, you're going to put it within an H tag. So H1 would be the highest important text. Okay, so anything contained within an H1 bracket, that is the most important text on your website. And then you can go down to H2, that would be the second most important. H3 would be the third most important, and then it goes all the way up to H6. So you can have a hierarchy of importance of your text. Does that make sense? Does everyone understand? So it's like a title in a document, for example, would probably be H1, right? And then if you wanted to have a subheading, that might be H2 or H3. So headings are used to designate hierarchy of content. Paragraph tags are used for just generic body text. And so that is you have a P contained within those angle brackets and then a slash P to end it. But that is just for your general body. So anything that you're just putting in there that you want to be generic text can go within those P tags. And so this is an example of that. You see I have contained within my body, remember those body tags, that body element, anything that the users are going to see is going to be contained with that. And you can see in my code at the left side there, I have an H1 hello world. And then within an H2 tag, I have it's nice to meet you. And then within a P tag, I say I can't wait to spend more time learning about HTML and CSS. And then if we look on the right there, you can see that hello world, which is an H1 tag, is much bigger than everything else. You can see that it's nice to meet you, which is an H2 tag, is smaller than that, but is still pretty large compared to the P or to the body. And then we can see that everything contained within the paragraph tag is smaller. Is everyone understanding? Do we see how we're creating hierarchy with those tags? You see how hello world sticks out to you more than everything else does? Perfect. So next we're going to talk about links. You're able to link to other sites within your file. And all you're going to do is you're going to create an A tag. And then within that first tag, so before you put the closing angle bracket, you're going to hit href and equals, and then you're going to put the link to your site, whatever site you want to link to, in that first tag. And then you're going to close it. And then between the open tag and the close tag, you will put the label for your link. Does that make sense? So if I go to the next slide, you can see that within that first tag, I have the link to Google. And then between the two A tags, I have go to Google. And so you see that go to Google is what the link looks like. Those are the words that the link has. And if you click on it, it's going to go to the Google link that I have right there. Does that make sense? Is everyone understanding? And then we're also able to make lists. And so one type of list is an unordered list or a bulleted list. And so that UL tag just stands for unordered list. You can see that you put it, you hit an enter, and then once you've tabbed in, you're going to put LI as your opening tag. That stands for list item. And then I just put first item, and then I did an enter and put LI second item, and then I entered again. And then you can see that the closing tag for UL that says /UL is at the same level. It isn't tabbed, so it's not contained within. It represents the closing of that element. And so if we look over here, you can see we have some headers up there, and then we have that UL element. We have first item, second item, closing tag, and then over there we can see first item, second item, and they are bulleted. Does everyone understand? Does that make sense? And then we also have ordered lists. These are exactly the same, except that they're OL instead of UL, which stands for ordered list instead of unordered list. And these are just numbered lists. There are other ways that you can do this, but generically, and most of the time, it's going to be a numbered list. And so the same thing, you have OL, then you have the closing OL with a slash in front of it, and then within those tags, you have the first item, the second item. And then you go in there. You can see that I coded it number 1, number 2, and you can see that it's numbered and not bulleted. Does that make sense? We also have images, and so this is, in CodePen, it's going to be a little bit different than it generally would. If you're using GitHub or any other web design softwares that are a little bit more advanced, you would have to add your images to your file, and then you would just be able to put the JPEG name in there. But you have that image tag. So this is one of those tags that doesn't have a closing tag. Like I said, most tags have, if it's an H1, you have your H1 tag, and then you have your /H1 tag that opens and closes the element. This element is all contained in one tag. So you can see I have image, I have the source, and that is the link
or the name of the file that you will be doing. And then I have alt, which just is an alternative, and that is a description of the image. We want to make sure that we have accessible design. And so if someone is blind and they have a reader who is explaining the site to them, that alternative just shows the website reader how to describe the image, if that makes sense. So if someone is not able to see, but they're able to listen, then they can still know what the image is a picture of. And so if we look over here, you can see that on the site, the image is taking a whole lot of space. This is actually a picture of a mountain. You can't tell right now, but you can see that I have that image tag. I have the source. In CodePen, there are images that you can go to, and then they have copyable links to those images, and so that's what I have there. And then you see the alternative is a picture of a mountain. But again, you see that it's just one tag instead of two tags, and you can see that the image is now there. Again, it is huge. It doesn't fit on the screen. We are going to style that later in CSS. But for now, you can see that using that image tag does put an image in your site. So that is most of the basic content types that you have. There are more, but those are not important for today. Another important thing is being able to organize and label your content within HTML. And so containers are a huge part of HTML. You want to keep a good structure and a good organizational layout to your site, to your HTML file, so that way as you're coding through it, you're able to see what is going on and you're able to style it well. And so the most foundational type of container is a div. It just stands for divider. And so you can see that I have that open div tag, and then tabbed within that, I have h1 about me, p, and then some text about you, and then closing div. This is the most fundamental type of container in HTML. Almost every container that you make is going to be a div container. And this isn't doing anything to my code yet. It is just organizing it, which that's going to be important later when we get to styling. But it's just keeping it organized and keeping it in a group. There are other types of containers as well. So we have the nav container. If you go into a website and you see at the top, there is a bar that has links to the different pages. That is a navigation bar. And so the nav container is how we code for that in our site. Anything that is going to be in the navigation bar would be contained within those two nav tags. We also have a section container. This one is similar to the div container, except it's more about related content. So say you're writing an article, all of the content from a specific section of that article would be contained within the section. So it's for related groups of information. And then we have the footer, which is similar to the nav. If you go to the bottom of a site and you see a footer that says copyright information that has maybe contact information for whoever created the site, that's at the bottom, that would go in your footer. We're not going to make one of those today, but that is how those are created, is using that footer container. And so, like I said, div and section are very similar. This is not super important. Div is just used for structure and for styling. It doesn't necessarily mean that the content within it has anything to do with each other. It's just for styling purposes. Whereas you're going to use section only for content that is connected and content that is relationally or is relevant to each other. This is not super important. I'm not going to expect you guys to use sections today. I just wanted to communicate that difference. And so this is an example of a nav container. It looks a lot like a list, if you remember. In there we have the nav open tag, we have the nav close tag, and then we have those are links. So we're referencing to other files in your project. And so when we make our nav, you remember how we made the home.html file? We're going to make a link tag that has a link to that home.html. And so the nav tag, or the nav element, contains links to other pages in your site. And so you can see I put that nav element at the very top of my body. And now you can see at the top, we have a link to home and we have a link to hello world. And I set those links up the same way that I talked about before, where within that first tag is the actual link itself. And then between the two tags is the name of the link. And so you can see that I have a home and I have a hello world. And you can see that up there at the top. And so labeling is also very important. This is super, super essential when we want to style certain things in HTML and web development, which we're going to do later in CSS. But being able to label certain things is what is going to help CSS know what to style. And so we have two main types of labels. We have the class label and we have the ID label. So the class label says that this content or this element falls into this class or this group. And so you can see that we have one called main content. We also have a labeling called IDs. This is only able to be used once. And so if you have a unique piece of content that you want to be able to style specifically separate from everything else, you will use an ID. This one is called special content. You can only use that once. And so generally you're going to be using the class. ID is just for very, very specific, very niche cases within your site. And so that is how you label. And like I said, classes are able to be used for multiple tags. So if you want to create styling that is the same across multiple things, you can save yourself a lot of only be used once, and they're only used for unique and very specific styling. Container that I have given the ID special columns, okay? And so within that div container, I have a div that says first column and a div that says second column, and they both have the column class. And so you see I've used both types of labels in this example. Now is the first time where you guys are going to get to work with all of this stuff. And so for the next 30 minutes or so, I want you to add a nav bar. I want you to make sure that you're putting your content within div. So where you're from, what school you go to, what you're studying, some of those main information. And then you have one that kind of talks about an experience in a way that shows yours at least once each. So we're going to take the next 30 minutes or so to do that. Things to practice. And if you have access to your email, Sarah sent you guys a document that has all of the content, but if you need any help, if you have any questions, please flag me or Geo down as you guys are working. Do you know how to mute this? Your home.html page. If you go over here and you click here, it'll open the index.html page as well. Do you have access to your email? If you go to your email, you should see from Sarah yesterday. I don't want to look through your email for you, but there should be a link to a document that has all of the content that you'll need. If you look up Sarah,
The English you sent to us, she didn't give us access to it.
Okay. I'm going to go and make sure that you have access to it. So I'm going to log in, and I'm going to make everyone be able to see it with just the link. So that will happen right now. Sorry, guys. Jeffrey, can I log in to this? Is that okay? Until I do that, though, as you're looking in your home.html, you also have an index.html page that should have the basic foundational HTML structure already in there. So you'll see the doc type HTML page, you'll see the HTML element, you'll see the header, you'll see the body. So if you want, you can copy and paste those lines of code into your home.html page, so that way you have the foundational structure of HTML in your site as well.
They just overwrite everything that's in their home.
The home is empty.
I think a bunch of people got home like this.
That's the index.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can we just put a bit on page? Found any of the emails? Or
I can send it to
you probably just like copy it to my drive and or are you gonna share the doc to me?
you. Yeah, I can share the doc to you.
Yeah, sure thing that yeah. Sure.
Okay, I'm going through, I got a bunch of access request notifications. So I'm just going to share that with everyone. So everyone should be getting notifications that did request. If you requested access as an editor, please just make sure that you're not going in and deleting things so that way everyone is able to see what they need to see. And so make sure that you are only copy and pasting the content in that file and that you are not adding or deleting anything so that way everyone is looking at the correct information. Thank you guys.
You on Wi-Fi?
I have data. But
GGALLO, Ggallo, at Ethico, ETHICO. You give me editor? Yeah, I'll probably just copy it so that if it gets messed up. Yep. Like here?
yeah. Okay.
I'll just put up a new slide. Yeah.
I just sent it to you. Okay, so because we are still figuring out how to make sure everyone has access to all of those links, instead of focusing on having content that is personal to you, so instead of having a resume type or a bio type, let's just focus on using some of those elements and using some of those tags and not worry as much about what we're putting in there for now. So if you're using a paragraph tag, it doesn't have to be super well thought out typing. You can just put a bunch of random words if you want. It doesn't have to be. We don't need to be making bio pages if we don't have time for that. If you do, if this is something that you're familiar with, feel free. But just focus on learning how to use those elements and not what you're putting in those elements for now.
How's that trees? It's not there. I'm so hungry.
Okay, so you're actually in the home.html file.
Yes.
So site. The preview on the right-hand side, that is previewing the index.html file. And so if you are making changes to your home.html file, those aren't going to show up right away. That's okay. So what you can either do is you can copy and paste the file that you've been working on in your home.html file into your index file, so you can overwrite what's already in your index file with the stuff that you've been working on. Or if you want to make a nav bar in your index file, like we talked about, so using that nav element container, and then having a link to your index or to your home.html file. Those are the two ways. The easier one is just to overwrite the information in the index file and start working it there.
What things are talking about? I haven't seen it. This one.
Type anything else in there.
Darling is not reflecting. I'm doing analysis also. I'm studying the numbers to display flex. It's not displaying as flex.
Do you have?
It's that
You do have it. Yeah. Okay.
it's not displaying as flex. See class shows
Yeah, I see that. Try changing color. Just a. I think the color tag is.
No, oh,
I think so. Yeah.
no,
I think it's just no you. Yeah. And then you can just put blue or something like that. Oh, you need to have semicolons at the end in order to see.
Yeah, VS Code would have put it by itself. I use VS Code. So VS Code
Oh,
does this.
gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I don't know why it's not flexing. I think the flex code might be different here than it is for VS Code. I'm going to go over that when we go over. So if you want to focus on having different elements, so putting some H1s, putting some paragraphs in there. Well,
Trouble getting to the page, you can go to this URL in your Chrome or your Edge browser, and it'll open the page. If you haven't gotten the page on your email, you can go to this URL, and it'll give you a bunch of information to help you what you need to do.
thank you, Gio. What time did this end?
11:20.
Need to close body. It's in there.
It's closed. Get rid of that.
Newspaper? You guys making a newspaper?
Oh, sorry. Just I don't know why I didn't work the first time.
Yeah.
Do you know how to set up again? I can go quick if you. So just people are using it. Yeah. Sure. Nice job. So you have that copy. Do you have your code pen file?
Yeah.
Then you should copy that. What's your code pen file? You copy it into your the new one that you created. I think you right clicked it if you just like that. And you copy it in there. So it didn't paste the tabs correctly. So the to into your so you can see that it's indented and how everything's indented again. You can just use the tab button to match it to that. And then you should be set up. Or if you want, you can go into your index.html page because that's what the preview is going to be on. And so I would maybe just work in that. But you can copy and paste that into there. Is this the document that you copy that? Oh, you just created a document? Okay. So now you're in the file. Do you have your code pen? No. So over here, click this link.
Have you done anything? You just get in there.
You can go to code pen. Need to sign up. Just use your Google account. This one, okay.
Give that like page that they can like at least edit instead of scratch.
Yeah, so they have there's a
Code basis page. Okay, let's do that. So go to a new page and type in that URL that's up there. Type in that, and that's going to give you a bunch of stuff. Do a new tab here. Go to a new tab and type in that URL. But I'm trying to figure out how to like. I mean, if people just don't know where to start,
yeah,
I feel
so
like it's going to be a lot to like show.
so the index.html page, the preview on your right hand side, that is looking at your index.html page. If you don't want to copy and paste anything, you can go in there and they already have the basic HTML structures in there. So you can start working in there. You can add things to your body elements. You can add things to your header. So if you have time and you feel yeah, you guys can start editing the index.html page. That will keep things easier. Once, if you figure that out and you want to move on to using a different page, feel free to use that home.html page. But for now, we'll just use the index.html page. Thank you, guys. So that's because this is previewing this index.html page. And so if you want to go in, we can delete this from the body because that's linking to a file that no longer exists. And so you can just take everything that you wanted to have in here, because this is the content that you want, right? You can take that, paste it into the body here. You see how that's there now, and then if we preview it, you see that it shows up. And so you can if you want, you can honestly just exit out of this page once everything is in there. So I would copy that as well. That way you're not losing it, but just to save more space, you can edit out of that page. And then this nav, you just need to make sure that everything is tabbed correctly. So that close tag needs to be the same level as the open tag. And then those A tags need to be indented within it. Does that make sense? So it'll look like this. So you know how you see it's the two tags are lined up and then those are within it. So you can copy and paste that into your index.
Split flips, no, okay, I don't know. But this stuff, we don't want to split flips. The front end flips, I don't know why. No, okay.
Interesting. I was having trouble getting display flex working in mine as well. Sometimes doing that. It's weird. So we're probably not going to get to flex boxes today for the site. I think it's a code pen issue and your coding issue, so I wouldn't worry. Okay, it is 10:34 right now. At about 10:50, we're going to switch to going over CSS. So take these next 15 minutes, try putting a couple different elements in there, try getting some paragraphs, some headers. Don't worry too much about how it looks as long as you have some elements you put code in for in your HTML and then you're able to see it in your preview, you're doing well. So that looks good. You can see that you put that in there and it's showing up. I would first make sure that you're tabbing it correctly, so the way it's within the body. CodePen isn't too picky, but you want to be in the habit of that. Usually, links are not usually stored within H1s. They're a separate tag, and so you can clear out that H1. You just have that link.
Start with your index.
Should still be. I don't know why it's made link anymore.
Then try to use some of that stuff or these things here. You put some of these things in. So these are some of the suggestions. Use a nav bar, columns, different pages, image, links, stuff like that. What I would suggest, start with a link. Okay, so copy that. You guys know about the other
Yeah, I don't know why that's not linking anymore. But what else are you trying to implement into your site?
Trying to make the hello world reflect here.
Oh, okay. So this home.html,
all right, so let's put it somewhere. So this is
we're just not going to use the home.html. So if you want to put it reflect in there, you can just put it in your body of your index.html.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So you can go in there, copy and paste it
just so you can see everything.
right there above the A. And then if we reload that, you can see.
Do I pay?
I don't know why it's not styled like an H1 though. Okay, we're gonna get rid of this one.
Okay. So now this has a link. So you see, you have to pick something here. Okay, so what you should do is link to home.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's doing that. I think that's a code pen issue, but do you see how it's showing up there now? Well done.
Inside the report.
Right, so you're working in your style.css sheet. So that's a CSS file. And so honestly, you can just use this file up here because this preview over here, you want to be able to see what you're working on.
Okay.
It's looking at the index.html. And so if you want to add hello world, we can just copy and paste it.
So
And then you can enter it in there. Do you see how it's tabbed now? And then if I paste that in there, preview it, do you see how it's showing up? So you can just use this honestly. You can just close that if you like. That way you're just using this one the whole time.
So how about we type miracles homepage? Type that.
Okay, so it seems like some people have been able to figure out how to put H1s or one or two elements into their bodies of their HTML. If you haven't yet, that's okay. But I would recommend once you've been able to figure out how to put a paragraph element and once you've figured out how to put a header element, try putting something like a list or a link or an image in there. But if you're not there yet, that is okay as well. Well done, by the way. So what you can do, these are all the images that you're able to use. So you can just go to photos down here, and then you can just copy an image that you like to use. So let's use this one. You can see that it's copied to the clipboard. I'm gonna paste it right there. It's a long link. And then I'm gonna say Alt equals show. Close it down. And then once I enter, so you can copy this. I think because so many people are using the internet, it's going to look in, but that's the correct way to do it. So good job. Okay, raise your hand if you haven't been able to add anything to your site that is showing up in your preview. I think it's working, right? Oh. So you're working in home. Reminder that the preview is looking at the index.html, not the home.html. So if your preview is not showing up, check to make sure that you're using your index.html. So, yeah.
Hey guys, if you guys feel a little bit stuck,
So,
try to do a main header with link for those not.
so then you can go over to your home file because you've been working on it, right? You can just copy this the stuff that we've been putting in there. Then you can copy it into the body. So let's enter that. You see how it's working now. And then this is not super picky, but I like to make sure that they're all tabbed within there, just so that way they're contained within the body.
No.
But great job, guys. And I think you might have accidentally just deleted your CSS sheet. So you can just says so that way you have it. You're all set. So you can go back to the index.html. Anything else that you'd like to work on. Nice job.
So
So that's the index.html. So that's what this is showing. We can this here. So then you have put this content here. Let's take this. Let's copy and paste it. Paste it in there. Reload that. Do you see how it's showing up now? So then remember that because it looks like over here, this stuff is generic text, right? Remember that is stored within a paragraph tag. So if you go open P close, you see how it automatically creates one? So that now that's within your paragraph tag. And if I go over here, I copy and paste that as well, right into there. Do you see how it does that? Okay, so if you just work in this file and then you use those tags, but you're already doing well. You used a couple H1 tags. Do you want to try using a P tag or a different H tag? So if you change this to H2.
Let's keep adding the keys to this one.
You can. I think most of the time you're only going to use a couple headers. But what you are going to use is you're going to use paragraph. So if you turn this one into a P, yeah, everyone is doing really, really well. I can say this here. But do you see how it's showing up there? So whatever you want to be your generic text is in that tag. Yeah, of course.
That one has certain copy. You want to type it, then you can do that.
Well done, guys. So those are the styling stuff. We're going to get to that in just a second. Good job. Very well done. Good job. Great work, guys. Good job, everybody.
Caleb, do they need to save their image in the structure here or just link to it on the web?
So the assets tab down here is where you would get your images. So if you want to add an image, you're going to go to on the nav bar at the far left of your screen. There is an image icon, and you can I don't know why the mic is going out. You can go in there and you can look through some of the free and accessible images, and then you can click on the image you want to use, and that will give you a link that you can put in. Some people also were having trouble getting those to load, and so if that's not loading, but you pasted it incorrectly, don't worry. Sorry.
What's that mean?
Yeah, I think if you link it from, um, so this is the free version of the site, and so you're not able to add your own. And so if you go in here, you can just look through the basic photos that are accessible to you, and then you can copy and paste one. So like say you wanted to do that, copy and paste it. The link is now on your clipboard, and you can go in and
Not even asking
place
for
it.
help. You guys turn it at the top, right? Cool.
Picture link.
And now you see at the bottom that it's showing. Like it was in the presentation. It's much bigger than the site. So when we go into CSS, we will change the styling. Okay, but nice job, guys. Okay, great job, everyone. It seems like a lot of people have been able to put various types of elements into their HTML sheet. We have a couple more minutes before we're going to move on to CSS. Real quick, if you have used multiple elements and you feel relatively confident in the HTML structure and how to use HTML, I would encourage everyone to just assign one class or ID to one of your elements. You guys remember classes or IDs? Those should be in the document as well, and they're in the presentation. Just label one element with a class or ID, because when we move on to CSS, it's going to be important to be able to have one of those. So if you have questions about that, please let me know. But so if you go in here, you can say class. You can say unordered. It all has to be one word. Technically, that's why I use the dash. So then when we style, you can then use that name to set up some unique styling for this this section. Does that make sense? And remember, if you're going to make a class in the open tag for that element, you will just sit class equals and then put the name of the class you want to use. And then the same for ID. In the open tag for that element, you'll just hit ID equals and then whatever you want your name to be. What was that? What's the difference? So the nav bar would be we're not really using the home.html anymore, but if you wanted to include a link to that page, because you know how sites have multiple pages, you have like the home page, you have the shopping page, whatever. The nav bar is where you put those links, and so you could open it like that and hit a page equals, I think it's HTML, and it's a little bit different than it normally is. And then you can close that bracket and just say home. Then you can see that it's a link down there that would take you to your home page. So now that's your home page. Does that make sense? And if you want to get back to your main page, you can just delete that, I think. Should be. Yeah, go. You guys have a working nav bar now. So if you put anything in that home page, you'd have to, I wouldn't worry about it because we're going to start with CSS, but you now have a nav. So that link takes you from this page to this page. Hold on. Okay, everyone, great job. I saw a lot of people doing super well. One last. So this is the free version, and so you have to use the sets page, and then you go in here, and you can click the link to any image that you want to do. So if we wanted to do this one, you click that link, and you replace this link right here Yeah, you guys are doing awesome.
People should know.
You sit there. And then you see that image there now. Well done.
Do we have people share a couple of the times and there was like stuff that it worked? I feel like that's what a lot of us is. Like, I have no idea what this is. Then it's like, oh, I did it and it worked.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Do we want to do that?
Saw a bunch as I was going around. They're like, you know, I idea how to do this. And I was like, put double close around. They're like, oh, it worked.
Yeah.
I feel like sharing that like helps.
Do you want to do that now, or do you want to do it after CSS?
Whatever you want to do.
Okay.
It might be good to like get them out.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, like I feel like people have made a bunch of progress. And I think it might be good to kind of consolidate it, celebrate it, and then go on to the next one.
Yeah.
Like,
That's a great idea. Okay, everyone, well done, well done. We are going to be done working on our HTML files. You guys have all done so well. I've seen everyone make a lot of progress. I would love to hear a couple people share their experience with it so far. Share moments where you maybe had trouble, you were getting frustrated that it wasn't working, and then it was you were able to figure it out. Does anyone have any examples that they're willing to share about struggling with something and then being able to figure it out and seeing what they were trying to make show up in their preview? Does anyone have any examples they're willing to share?
Hey guys, can somebody tell us what something that you figured out? Tell us something that you didn't know how to do an hour ago, and then you paid attention, you worked together, and figured something out. Just tell us something that you.
Just one or two people.
All right, we're gonna start calling on you. Okay, just Dave. What's something that you did on your Wednesday?
Oh wow, that's awesome. You can call them from your description. It's amazing.
What's something that you did differently?
Okay, I just added a link.
Yeah, the link. What were you stuck on?
He's trying to navigate why my link was not showing on the store. But he helped me last week.
You're trying to navigate what?
I was trying to add a link, but it was not coming up. But he later helped.
Yes. So this is how this thing is, right? As you guys are learning coding, this is what a lot of it is. Work. You look it up and you look at the syntax. Did I put everything right? And then you do it, and then it works. And you say great, and then you move on to the next thing. So I want you guys to understand that you've made a bunch of progress today, and we're going to keep learning. But this is what this learning path is, right? As you're learning web development, as you're learning coding, it's a bunch of things that you don't know. You get stuck. You try it, you look it up, and then you fix it, and then you learn it. So now we're going to go into.
Yeah, for sure. And oftentimes, just to add to that a little bit, oftentimes you will be working on something for a long time. Maybe you have a long paragraph element, or you have things that you've been working on for a long time, and then none of them are showing up. And it might feel like you are very, very far from it working. Like you put all of this work in and none of it's showing up. That you're very far from where you want to be. But oftentimes, it's one little small detail that you missed out on. That is why it's not working, and everything else was perfect. So I think just having a little bit of resilience and remembering that oftentimes when you're coding, just small little things are what's messing you up, and that you have the core of it down. I think everyone here has a good core understanding that you guys have gained and how this works, and the things that are not working are not your understanding. It's just a small little detail. And so I've seen everyone come really, really far. I'm very impressed. So we're going to move on.
All right, guys, let's give ourselves a hand.
Yes, everyone give yourselves a hand.
Now we're going to go to the next level.
We're going to go to adding some basic styling. I know some of you have already been working on that, but we're going to go over. Is it possible to get rid of that page? Okay, so we're just going to look over some styling basics. I don't think we're going to be able to get through all of the styling rules that I have here, but that's okay. We're just going to focus on some very, very basic styling. So if you remember in your file, you'll look and you'll see you have your 3 files. One of them is called style.css. That file is what sets the styling and the formatting for all of the content that you've just been working on. And so we're going to look over how that goes. So some basics in CSS. Like I said, it's used to style and to format the content that you've put in your HTML files. And so if we look over here, this is what a CSS rule looks like. So we have H1, we have an open curly bracket, we have a color that says blue, you have a semicolon, and then you have a closed curly bracket. That is what essentially every CSS rule looks like. So in this example, the selector is H1. That is what tells the file what types of elements we're going to apply this style to. And then we have color is the property. That is the aspect of those elements that we are changing or that we are styling. And so you see that in this example, it is selecting H1 and it is saying that we are going to change the color of H1 to blue. Does everyone understand? So we have various types of selectors that we can use. So we can select different elements in HTML. So generic elements like H1, like paragraphs or P, like lists, those generic elements that we talked about, you don't need to put anything in front of it. You can just put the name of that element, like there with H1. There's nothing in front of it. It's just H1, and that is how you select it in CSS. If you wanted to select a class, you would put a period or a dot in front of it, and then put the name that you have assigned to that class. And then with IDs, you would put that little hashtag symbol or the number symbol in front of it, and then you would put the name of the ID. And so that is how you select the different things in CSS. And then we have various properties that we can style as well. This is what we're going to be focusing on today. If everyone does any styling, I want the first thing that they style to be styling your text. So whether it's an H1 or it's your P, your paragraph, or it's a different header, we're going to be focusing mostly on this today. So you can see I have my H1 selector. Again, that's telling my project that I want this style that I've created to be assigned to my H1 elements. And in there, I have the color designated to blue. I have the font size designated to 40 pixels. I have the font family designated to Arial, and then I have the text align to center. So these are some of the most foundational properties for styling text. Color, size, fonts, and how you want it to be aligned. There's some other things that you can do as well, but these are the most foundational properties for styling text. So now we're going to see, if you remember, and you're all looking at it in your files or in your projects as well, the most generic styling is Times New Roman, and it's black. And so if we look over here, we see that I have in my HTML, the white box on the top left over there is my HTML code. You see I have hello world as an H1. And then underneath it, the blue box is my CSS code. You can see that I have that H1 selector, and then those properties that we just talked about, I have there. We have the color as blue. We have the font size as 60 pixels. We have the font family as Arial, and then we have the text align center. And you can see that instead of being the generic HTML H1 formatting, we now have formatting that I have designated. So you see how it's centered, it's a little bit bigger, it's blue, and the font is different. So you can see that all of those properties that I put within my CSS rule are now applied to my H1. Does everyone understand? Does anyone have any questions? This is the most foundational aspect of styling, so I want to make sure everyone is understanding. You see how we have the selector, within the curly brackets, we have our properties. Each property ends with a semicolon, and then you're able to go on to the next property. Is everyone following? Amazing. And so I want to talk a little bit about cascading styling. This is a little bit complex, but sometimes you might have multiple rules that would apply to one thing. So to give an example, if I have an H1 element that also has a class within the first tag, so I have it exists as an H1, but it also exists in that class, and then I have two rules in my CSS. I have a rule for the H1, and then I also have a rule for the class. Which one do you guys think, which rule do you think the CSS would pick? So like say I have two different styles for the text, right? I have the H1 style, and then I have the class style, and then I have an element that is both an H1 and falls in the class. Which formatting rule do you guys think it would go with? It would go with the class. So the reason why that is because CSS prioritizes specificity. So it picks the most specific rule. So a class is more specific than a generic element, and so it chooses to go with the class styling instead of the element style. And then the ID is the most specific, so that would be prioritized over class styling. So if we look over here, we can see an example of that. You see I have two H1 elements. I have one that just says hello world, and I have one that says hi again. If you see up there in the top left, the hi again element has a class assigned to it that says green header. So now if we look in our CSS, we have that exact same rule that I did before that assigns the color, the font size, the font family, and the text align. And then we have a new rule that has that dot in front of it and says green header. That is for the green header class. And you can see that the color is now green. Now, if we look over here, we see that hello world has the same styling as the generic H1 styling that we designated, but hi again is green, which means that it took the green color from the class rule, overrid the blue color from the generic element rule. Does that make sense? Does everyone see how that worked? And you can also see that the other properties that were in that original class rule, they were kept. So it's not like by having a class rule, it gets rid of all of the other styling from the generic element. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? Do you see how it's taking the more specific property, the more specific rule, and is prioritizing that over the generic rule? Amazing. So that is the basics of CSS styling. For the sake of time, I'm going to let you guys go over this yourself. So we're just going to use this, and I want everyone to make a rule either for their H1 or for their paragraph, okay? There are more slides on styling as well that we can go through if we have time, but I want to make sure everyone is able to assign a styling rule in CSS and is able to see it work in their projects, okay? So we have until 11:20, so we have 15 minutes to do that. Everyone can get started in making a rule either for a paragraph, for an H1, or for a class, but let's focus on those text styling rules, okay? Yes. Yes, so remember that we have 3 files in our project. We should have 2 HTML files and 1 file called style.css. So you're going to be putting these styling rules in your style.css file, not your HTML file. Does that make sense? If anyone is having trouble getting to their style.css page, let me know. There should be some of you might have a rule that's already in there. Feel free to delete that rule and just clear it out so that way we're starting from blank. And again, let me or Gio know if you need any help. We'll be walking around to assist to make sure everyone is able to get there. What was the question? You want to separate them? So what you can do is you can add between them. You can add an empty paragraph. So do you remember the paragraph, which is just the generic text? You can add an empty paragraph, and that should. Do you see how that created a space?
How do you create this thing?
So you just go in and you just type between the tags. You just do an open curly bracket, P, and then it automatically closes them.
Okay, thank you. What about the image? I don't know what the image.
So the images, there should be a tab over here that you're not seeing because it's not full screen. I wouldn't worry about images for today, just because the code pen is being a little bit weird for some people. So just focus on your text and go into your style.css and make a styling rule that changes some of the properties of this text. So you used mostly divs to contain your text. Usually you'd use this p element for your generic text, but you use divs, which is okay. So that just means that when you go into your CSS, instead of saying, if you wanted to style all of the stuff, instead of saying p as the selector, you'll say div as the selector. So go into styles.css, and then you can start to make new rules using that format that I showed you. Okay. Let me know if you need any help. How's everyone doing? Raise your hand if you've been able to make a rule that you now see in your preview. Well done. Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
I would recommend starting with a selector for just a generic. So this is all this stuff here, right? This is stuff that was already there. Let's just clear that. Let's start. Is it okay if we just start blank? So then you're going to go in. If you want it to be H1, it's H, the number 1. And then you're going to do those curly brackets again. And I like to just enter it so that way it starts like there, so I can have my interface. So then those same properties that we talked about there on the screen, you can start applying, and you can apply to things that are under your H1. Does that make sense? Let me know if you guys need.
Thank you.
What playlist? If you wanted to start again for it's
So I only have a here. So we're gonna read element. That's where all the visible content is going to go. So I'm just going to create a quick, I want you guys to learn how styling works. So I'm just going to create a quick site, quick content for you guys. You see how within my body, I've created a couple elements. I created that H1 element that we talked about, created a P element, which that's for generic text. Then I'm going to do H2. So when we load this, do you see how those things that I put in showed up there? So now what you can do is you can go into your style.css page right there. So then you can now assign styling rules for those things that we have in. So we have an H1, we have a P, and we have an H2. You can create rules for those elements. Does that make sense? Let me know if you need more help. How's it going over here? Have you been able to make a styling rule? Oh, nice. By styling one of the text elements, so maybe an H1 or a P to change the color or something like that, just to see how it works. Oh, it's amazing. What are you guys stuck at?
Make it notify.
You just enter right there. Click create. So if you use when you're doing this, if you use the enter button, that automatically tabs things correctly. So do you remember how I talked about how having an indent is what shows you that this stuff is contained within that? So using the enter button creates a new line and it automatically tabs it in the correct way. Does that make sense? Well done, guys. In order to finish that property, rules are like, so these properties are able to be even with each other as long as they're indented as the selector. Does that make sense? And then the property, you just end it with a semicolon like that, and then you're all set. You see how it gets bigger? Well done, guys. I just got word that we have until noon now to work on our projects, and so I'm gonna give until 11:20 to finish that first CSS styling rule, and then I'm gonna spend about 10 minutes, 20 minutes going over some other types of rules, and then we'll have some more time to practice doing more CSS styling. Okay, but take the next 5 minutes to get your text styling figured out. Well done, everybody. You guys are doing amazing.
Okay, look.
One second. Yeah, you're good. So you have your style sheet up there. Each one. I think it might just be because there's not a space there. Stay. So here, because it's an American site, they spell color with just an O. And then so do you see how that changed? Right here it's font size, so you just delete that R. And then that's the rules as. Does that make sense? I don't know why it's not eliminating that center. I'm not sure why it's not aligning center. Um, really not sure when it's not working. That looks correct. Sometimes CodePen just glitches out. But do you see how it's working? Yeah. Yes, of course. Let me see if font fit works. Just to see. So do you see how it changed the all? No. It's changed. But do you see how it's applying those rules? Well done. So it's called text. See. Do you see how it's just small little details like that, but you have the core understanding there? Coding is frustrating.
I can figure out why this tag is not working. Right, this style is working. Can you see anything wrong with that?
I cannot. What is your header? What is,
Putting each one there for the
yeah, what does your header look like? In your HTML, scroll up.
it's this right here saying
Is that all that you have in your HTML file? So you don't have a link to your CSS file. So all of this is correct. You just don't know. It doesn't know where to look. Do you have the? Okay. So here in the header section, this is where you put the metadata, like we talked about. You have the presentation here. So if we scroll up, you can see here that link right there, the link to style sheet. If you copy that and put that within your header, then it will link to the sheet. Does that make sense? Do you want to put that in?
smart. See, that's why he's the professor. Okay.
Is anyone else having trouble seeing their rules?
Changing this line application from to another column-based for
So here you have class. Interesting. Let's see what happens. I'm just going to test this out. I'm just going to copy and paste this. I think here, because this is this class is to this container, I don't think it's assigning those rules to the text for some reason. I'm not like an expert in this necessarily. So I think if you want, you can assign these. If you assign this navigation class to these elements instead. So if I go in there, swoop. Yeah, so before you do anything, or before we finish today, we're gonna make sure that we save it so that way it is stored in your account.
I think they just lost their file. It's probably not recovery on it. Looks like version history is a pro feature. We're just gonna back to this thing.
Okay, yeah, if everyone real quick wants to click save before they stop, so that way you have your progress. So that way if you accidentally reset it, you still have what you have. Do you guys want help quickly adding stuff in there?
That might be good. You want to just kind of give them a stock setup real quick?
Yeah, do you guys want me to get you set up real quick?
They have this document here if you want to copy some stuff. You want Professor Caleb to put some stuff in? You
You've
want
got
to
it?
do it yourself?
Okay.
All right, I like that attitude. That's a good attitude. I like it. Should we tell everyone how to?
Yeah, so everyone, if you look at the top right of your screen, you'll see that profile button that has a little smiley face. You'll see a button that says controls, and then next to it, you'll see a button that says save. If everyone wants to click save if they haven't already, that way what you've been working on so far is still there in your project if you refresh, or if you go back to it tomorrow, or if you need to take screenshots for your assignment, you have it in there.
It is manifest.
Yeah. So if you go here, right here, yeah. So It's just saved. So now your progress is
Wait, I'm having issues.
okay.
I'm willing to do it, but I'm clearing for
Yeah. What's the issue?
no, I'm trying to add the photo.
Yes. Okay. So we can photos are added in HTML. Um, so if you're not seeing the nav bar because it's split screen, is it possible to separate these tabs out again?
Yes, I got it.
So if you go over here, you will see images, photos. So you can copy and paste whichever one you want. Let's just copy and paste this one. Then we can go in here and paste it in there. And then if we reload, do you see how that image is loaded there? Yes. That looks great.
So now that controlling what can be provided something that and
Yes. If just a quick note, anyone who is trying to make a color rule, remember that this is an American platform, and so the spelling is COLOR, and it doesn't have the U in like the British spelling. And so if you put COLOUR, it's not going to realize that it's a color rule, which is another example of just those little details that when it doesn't work, it feels like nothing is working, but it's just as simple as one U being there that's not supposed to be there that's making it not work. Okay, it seems like a lot of people have figured out how to style text elements, and that's amazing. You guys are doing super, super well. I want to take a few minutes to go over some other ways to style using CSS, and then I'll leave you guys the rest of class to use those things to practice in your projects. So if everyone can wrap up what they're doing, if you still are actively working on something, that's fine. But if you're not, we're going to go over some more styling rules. So when we have images, like we showed, we're going to talk about some responsive styling here real quick. So you can see, remember that the selector is right up there, and we're styling our image elements. If you see here, that max width property right there, that is crucial. So if we want an image that is able to show up both in a computer and in a phone, if we have the width set up with the size being used in pixels, and say we set the size to 1,000 pixels, then the width of that image would automatically be 1,000 pixels no matter what device it's looking on. And say you have a phone that is only 500 pixels wide, then when you're viewing this website on your phone, you're only going to get 1/2 of that picture. So this max width property right there sets the max width for the image. And when you use a percentage instead of a pixel, it uses a percentage of the size of the device. So if we had a 500 pixel phone, then 400 pixels would be the max width of that image. So that is an example of responsive design, and that's super, super important because remember, people are going to be viewing this on their phones, and they're also going to be viewing this on computers, and we want it to look good on both devices, right? And then we also have height. So here, in this case, because we already have a width property set, we don't necessarily want to change our height to a specific size, because if you have, say you have an image that its width is 1,000, the initial width is 1,000, and the height is 500, so you have an image that is half as tall as it is wide. If I manually set the max width to be 80% and the height to be 80% as well, or say I set the max width to be 100 pixels and I set the height to be 100 pixels, instead of being the half as tall as it is wide picture, it would stretch that picture so that way it's a square, which would then make it not look correct. It would not look how it originally looked. So generally speaking, when you have when you're styling an image and you set the width to a certain number, just use the auto feature to set the height so that way it's not stretching your image. And then here we can set a border radius that just rounds the edges a little bit, so that way it looks a little bit nicer. And then we see here, do you guys remember earlier in the presentation we saw that picture that was taking up all that space and you couldn't see anything? Now we see that is exactly the same picture by setting the max width to 80% and setting that border radius to 8 pixels. We now see the full picture contained within 80% of our site, and we see that it has rounded corners. And so with just those 3 properties, we went from having a picture that you could not tell what it was to a picture that you can see clearly in there that has nice round edges. So that is how you style images. When we're styling containers, so remember, containers are ways that we are organizing and structuring the content within our HTML file. When we're styling containers, there's a couple things that we can do. And so here you can see that I'm styling my div containers. Remember, divs are the generic container. Most of your text elements are going to be in an H1 tag or a P tag. And if those are contained in anything, it's usually going to be a div. So here I have set for all of my divs, all of my div containers, I've set the background color as that hex code right there. You can also use generic color names. I think that hex code is for gray, but I could also just say the word gray. But here I have a specific hex code that assigns a very, very specific color. And then over here, this is super important. I have a margin rule and a padding rule. So the margin is what sets the space outside of the container, and the padding is what sets the space inside the container. I'll show an example of that in a second. But you can see that on my margin, I have 4 numbers in there, and on my padding, I have 1 number. So in the margin, when you are setting your sizes for the margins, if you put all 4 numbers, the first one is for the top of the container, the second one is for the right of the container, the third one is for the bottom of the container, and the last one is for the left side of the container. So that is clockwise, right? Top, right, bottom, left. If you only put 1 rule into one of those things, then it assigns that, that size to all sides. Does that make sense? So you can see how up in the margin rule, I have 4 different sizes set to my 4 different sides. And then in the padding rule, I have 1 size that is automatically applied to all sides. And then I also set a border. I actually forgot to close this out when I made this, so you can see there's no semicolon there. There should be a semicolon there. Designating is the size. I have dashed as well. There's a couple others, but solid is just 1 straight line. And then we have the color at the end there as well. That hex code is for black. And so let's look at this. So this is an example of the margins. So or of the container. So you can see we have some text in there, and then we have our div styling. And so you can see that the background color within that div has been changed to gray. And then you can see, I'm going to get up here actually. So you can see that we have different size margins. So over here, remember, it goes top, right, bottom, left. And so if we look here, this 30 pixel size is the margin that goes to the right of that container. So you can see that there's about 30 pixels between the edge of the screen and the edge of that container. And then if we compare that to over here, this is the left side. The left rule is 5 pixels. So do you see how on the left side there's significantly less space than on the right side? That's because of those different margin sides. So it's hard to, there are no more elements, so you can't see this, but at the top, there's 20 pixels of a margin. And then if I put another element in my HTML, it wouldn't start until 10 pixels after that element because the bottom element is 10 pixels. And then you can also see within this, inside of the container, we have 10 pixels worth of padding. We can see that here to the left of the text is 10 pixels between the edge of the container and the text. And now if you'll notice, there's a big gap between hello world and between the generic paragraph text. And that's because elements like H1 and P have automatic padding and margins. So they inherently come with space on top and space on the bottom. And so next, I'm actually going to add a new rule. We're keeping the same for the div style is keeping exactly the same, but I'm adding a rule to change the padding and change the margins on my H1 and on my P. So as you can see here, I changed the bottom. You can see I designated specifically margin dash bottom. That changes only the margins on the bottom of my H1. And then you can see that with my paragraph element, I changed the margin from the top to 0 pixels. So for both, I got rid of it. And now you can see that compared to this, where there's a whole bunch of space between them, now they're right next to each other. And so you can manually override the automatic padding and automatic margins by going into your CSS and changing those styles. Does that make sense? Is everyone following? Amazing. We're not going to get to columns yet. I want everyone to go into their CSS, and I want you to, if you have an image in your HTML, style that image and make it fit within your site. And then I want you to try to style a container like a div, and style it using these properties. So we'll take the next 15 minutes to do that. So it's 8:30 or it's 11:35 right now. We'll go until 11:50 to style. Everyone try to style a container and to style an image. All right. This is H1.
Yes.
Okay.
Reality.
H1 is it's a generic. It's a generic element, right? So you don't need that in front of it.
In H1, so we've also given this H2. And then with H1, that is what it's have.
Oh, you want?
Okay, don't worry, just sit back.
Okay. Yes. So I think this is so align items is used for containers, so that way the items within the containers are center. If you want to align a text item center, you can change it to text align center. You see how it's centered now?
This is this text. The text of this image. This text.
Yes.
Side image.
You want it to be next to it. So you guys have the presentation. No, okay, so you can use AI actually. So what you're gonna do, where in this image? So what you're gonna want to do, I want you guys to create a div,
Okay, separate. Okay.
and so you're gonna put both of those elements in a div.
Okay. Separate. Wait,
So
together.
yes, together within a div.
Trying to create a flex box for this two stuff. So it's this image from this dress up will be here. Then when you switch to mobile device, like this, but Flexbox is not creating for this container. Flexbox is not creating for this container so that they can be side by side.
What is this container called?
So now it's called hero from here to the end.
And you want it to all be flexed.
Yes.
You styled hero yet? Doesn't look like you have a style. Oh, you. Should work. If not, CodePen is kind of weird. Yeah. If not, should be using ChatGPT to figure out what I'm doing. So you're going to tab both of those, so that way they're contained within the div. And you guys have ChatGPT, right?
Yes.
So tell it that you have these two elements within a div. And, it's called Flexbox, is what it is called. And so I think so look up specifically for CodePen what to use. I think I was able to get it to work. It took me a couple tries and using AI. So just tell it that you're using CodePen. But you guys are ahead, so I'll let you guys use AI. Is anyone having trouble styling containers? Yeah. Stuff.
That's just right. That's it.
I don't think it's close. Source is S. Newspapers. Is anyone else having trouble with styling images or containers? Want to be wider? Okay, so max width doesn't, if the original image is smaller than that max width, it doesn't change it. So what you can do, get rid of it. It's just a generic width. And now it should edit it to where it's the whole width of the screen. Does that make sense? Yeah, of course. So the max width rule that I showed for styling images, max width means that it's designated the maximum width. And so that rule only applies to images where the original width is larger than that max width. So if you have an image where the original size is 80 pixels and I set my max width to 800 pixels, that 80 pixels image is not going to be changed because its width is already smaller than the max. If you want to change an image that is smaller than the size that you want to a larger size, don't use max width, use generic width. So instead of saying max dash width, just say width and designate the size that you would. That looks amazing. That's awesome. Well done. Great job. Have you done this before? I'm very impressed. Very well done. I'm gonna, if you want, if there are people at the table who are having some trouble, would you be willing to help out a little bit? If you have been able to successfully style a container and an image, feel free to look around your table to see people who have not and see if there's anything that you can do to help them out. What's the problem? I want there to be more space. So you can go in here, and you can say margin. Say yeah, there's more space now. Yeah. And so you could have done exactly the same thing by doing margin top for that element as well.
Actually,
This is in your text in HTML, right? Did you get this image from there?
the one from there.
So images in here. This is the image that CodePen has access to. Again, in GitHub or in any actual more advanced platforms, you would be able to upload your own images. But in this, you're only able to use, at least in the free version, you're only able to use these images. So let's print this. Just for an example, you can change this to whatever you want. If I go in here, I change it. You see how that image is showing up now? And it's much larger than the site, so you'll need to style it and set the width for it. But now you have an image in there. So you can go, you don't have to do that picture. You can go in here. You can use the search bar as well if you want to find certain types of images. Once you click on it, it'll be the link for you, and then you can do it.
She's like, it's not an image.
Yeah. Do you have an image? So here, that looks like only part of the link. Is it okay if I go and find another picture? Let's try this one. So I just copy that. I go here. And I just paste that now. And yeah, it has to load first. And then this one, because the image is so big, this is the actual picture. It's just like the top left corner of it. So if you want to style your image, you can go into here and you can style your generic images so that way the width is different. Does that make sense? Sweet. You're trying to upload an image. So this, because this is CodePen, you guys are doing it correctly. This platform just doesn't allow you to upload your own images. And so unless you want to pay, which you shouldn't pay. So if you go in here, these are the assets that you do have access to practice with. Let's just copy this one, for example, if that's okay. And you want to do this one? Okay. So that copies the link, and then you just replace that name with that. And then if you refresh it, it should show up. Yeah, you see that? So that you guys were doing it right. It's just the form. Has everyone been able to style a container and an image? Who is not? Okay. So what's the problem that you have?
Not changing it.
So you have over here. you want this to change. So over here, you don't have any elements contained within the div. So you created the div style, um, but there are no divs in your HTML. And so if I go over here, I take all of these, move it over, and I create a div element. Should apply the div styling to this. Let's see. Interesting. Sorry, that. To it to be against the back right there, so that way it knows it's a selector. And then I think it's still tabbed in. Yes. So, and then if I go back there,
Thank you.
see if that works. It's working. I'm gonna try deleting these. I think you have too many files in there. I don't think that would be the problem because you've been able to style things otherwise. Oh, did it just delete the picture? Okay, I'm sorry about that. I didn't know that you could add more files to it. This is able to work. Put that in there correct. Set in there correct.
For that restaurant.
Background color.
Gifts. What are you doing?
This looks correct. They're very smart. Oh, okay. This is not closed out. I think might be the issue.
It's great, dude. You've done awesome with this. You're like picking so much up. It's really exciting for you.
Okay, so here you don't need. Do you have this link? Do you have it in your HTML? Okay, so you don't need this here. I think this might be confusing. You don't need that image there. You have a link to it. You do have a link to it. Ah. That's good. It's in your header, okay? Yeah. It's right here. Sorry. Is there maybe too many spaces between it? Confused. Should be interrupting. It's closed. I think all of this white text is not needed. Let's just try adding an alt. Which one is it again? Again, this should work. Let's change this to is it okay if I delete this file? That should be fine. This. You guys, do you have ChatGPT pulled up? You have ChatGPT pulled up? Let's. Can you paste in there? The images we have, and the put the next image. And just see what it says. 'Cause I really this looks exactly how it should. Be that. So, what was that? Your Zoom. Who raise your hand if you feel like you have a good grasp that you see? Do you guys feel like you're capable of overcoming challenges and overcoming things that are frustrating when you're doing that? Able to grasp these concepts really well. So if you want to continue this on your own, there is no paywall there. There is no you don't need to take a class in order to do this. You have everyone is
Done.
okay. So the margin, that is the outside. So what is this coding for? This is for divs. Okay. Those things are just things that I put in there for the presentation. I wonder if those are interrupting. And then let's get rid of that.
Voila.
Yes. Yes. All right, everyone. Thank you so much again for paying attention and for your hard work. I'm happy to help out if anyone has some last minute questions. But other than that, this workshop is complete. Everyone should be very, very proud of themselves for everything that they've done today. Thank you so much for your attention and for your efforts. I really appreciate everyone. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Same.
How can I save it so that I can access it later?
If you just click this save button, anytime that you log into your account, then you'll have it. Yeah, so you can use your phones if you want. So you have been working with him. Um, I would just take some pictures of that. That way, if you need to turn something in for this, you can show that you did work on this, even if you didn't. So on your phone, just take some pictures of the site that you made.
About this pattern. What do I do? What are these patterns?
Okay, so padding, that is within the
Within it.
yeah. So do you see that space between the
Then all this one remains for your 30.
happy to answer some more.
So that comes out. Program. That's what we need for the future. First, get a laptop. Laptop is very special. Let's see. You come to today's session, or this is the knowledge that we have known before. It's okay if you've seen it before, right? But if you learn something new, can I have your attention? Can your attention be on me? Whenever can I have your attention? If you speak to this, it's you are very strong. If you learn something new today, it's you can be from just content. I'm not saying you teach me the actual code, just a general overview of what you learned today. Before you said you learned something new. So a general overview of what you learned today. If you don't come now, I'll call you. Where you going apart from gender? Somebody else, somebody else. Just but people is going to at the back. So because share what we have done. That's common. I mean, not to same is private and today I learned about each theater theater. I learned the that is like useful. Most of them so like keep them not to be like body of capside. General really of different things. And then yes, slightly like slightly get like I didn't feel what so this is a good time. Because we are before, but not the good. She said H7 word, the money, the sentence is style. So can somebody come to add to what she has given us so far? Who wants to add to it? Was it just what HTML and CSS was doing? More context, more context, more context. I will call you. You do not volunteer. Yeah, I will call you. Blessing. Give a blessing. Please put them together for her to talk. Like chaplains. So, yeah, please put them together for her. Looking on there, person from the finance and data analysis class, are we here? Person from media marketing, are we here? Media marketing is where you are not aware that the media marketing class. Media marketing is where just two people. Wait now, hold your hand up. Media marketing. See anybody waving your hand. Alright, data analysis, please wave. Somebody still waving like this. Please wave. Thank you. Alright, so the technology the sharing what they had. From what they told me, I was not in class. They told me that you use HTML to write the body of the website and CSS to style it, right? That was what they told me. I was not in class. And so somebody from the media marketing class should come and share with us what they have planned from today's session. I mean, we had more time today compared to the past week, so I'm sure you've gotten something very, very substantial. So from the media marketing class, can somebody come to share what they learned? Somebody, somebody, share what they learned from the media marketing class. Please put it together for you. Says better conditions of God. Keep clapping, don't stop. Don't stop. Yes.
Attended the media marketing class, we were taught the principles of design, balance, proportions, repetition, reading. The balance is about when you position or arrange your items so that when you position items so that the viewer, so that you keep balance with the viewer. The contrast is about the like the brightness of the different elements. For example, you are using red color, you are using white color. The red color has more contrast than the white color. If someone is doing your design now, it will notice the red color first before it notice the white color. Also, there's hierarchy when you arrange your elements, the order of their importance. For example, you are designing for maybe a catering or food design. The the name of the brand, the name of the brand is very important. So there's a way you position the name of the brand, the size of the text, so that when someone sees the design, notice okay, the name of the brand. Also, what is the essence of the design? Maybe it's like maybe the design is, for example, we are doing for let's say sim fashion. Maybe it's flash sale, 20% off. That 20% off will be positioned in a way that when the you are seeing the design, you know, okay, there's a discount to what is doing is flash sale, position your the date, location, those ones here at the bottom of your design.
You're not in fact I'm getting a bit of people. They will put it together for you. And then finally, the following from the final and partner class should come and share what they have learned. Finance and data analysis. That from the together for us to do. So I had to get up there and have a report. It should be nice. If you see I have some like that you will have the documents analyzing it. And then you will have the reason why not price or cheap. Because when this around all of the people in this issue. And then again, the last things are the last difference between different types of chart, bar chart, pie chart, line chart, every other chart. Then we also have the differences between them. We need to learn how to use them. The one that's suitable for the particular data. Chart. Bar chart shows ranking and category. Standard plots now shows relationships. So if you want to like get relationship, okay, you have expenses, your savings, your transportation, what you spend on feeding and the next food. You can use a scatter plot to show the relationship between how that money was spent. So you can use a scatter plot to analyze that kind of data to explain that kind of information. And you also know that in every data analysis, there must be a text. There must be a text to that this is then the last color matching. One very important thing that you must know is that you should understand the uniqueness of color and the universal color aspect. And I mean, if you want to show you that this thing is related to danger now, I can use a color match of red and black. When you see it, you just know that this is something. So if you want to explain something, you can sound. Then something like blue and pink. If you want to differentiate between a male and a female child, you can use blue because normally universal blue is accustomed to the male gender is accustomed to female. So, I can't be on station. But from what you have explained to us so far, we are now assuming that you gained something tangible from the session that you had. So please let us unanimously put that together for our wonderful presentation. Because we have some different I'm going to start with all the stop for them. Stop for them. Like, you try to stop for them. I'm going to the one that you're going to do. No, I don't. All right. All right. So we have come to end of the third quarter of workshop. And this series started from on February. We had the first workshop. And we had the second episode that this is the we are going to be having the first one for the year also. And also our post surveys are going to be going out today. So I will be dropping the on our investment platform. So please, as soon as we get that link, fill the survey. It helps us track the process and the impact of the workshop. So please, as soon as you get that link, try and fill it. Um, so we are going to be closing now and then we can have our lunch. So please let's rise for our closing prayer. So I think once you began this journey with us in the month of February and so far you have been with us all through the process. We are waiting for that. You see, my name is elected in the name of Jesus. And I would ask that all that we have learned here today and in the previous workshops, we ask for your help in navigating them in our lives and making it beneficial to us as individuals in the name of Jesus. Lord, we ask for the grace to be able to use this knowledge that we've gotten so far to for our personal growth, our professional growth, that at the end we turn out to be well-known professionals in the professional space that has value to give out to our world in the name of Jesus. Lord, as we are about to have our meal, we pray by it, we cover it with the precious blood of Jesus. It will bring nourishment to our mortal bodies in the name of Jesus. And as we are living without your protective edge to encompass around us in the name of Jesus. Be thou exalted. Thank you, most faithful Father. For Jesus was on and praise. Please let's have our seats. We can orderly manner. Let's come for our meal. Please hold up.